everybody, welcome back here to the library. Before we go any further, I want to make sure to remind you to like this video and hit that subscribe button because we've got great content coming at you every Sunday here on the channel. And of course, this Sunday is our next episode of 1,000 Words or Less. And you may or may not recognize him as he has let the COVID facial hair from the summer continue to grow. But our friend of the show, we get to say that phrase, friend of the show, Ross Hardy.
My second appearance.
Our first reappearance of a guest.
I also would thank you for doing me the compliment of saying this is a COVID growth and not just I'm lazy, I can't find my razor, I don't remember how to do it anymore. Yeah, let's just go with this is the pandemic beard that everybody has grown.
I mean,
I'm normal.
I could have thrown out that you apparently don't know how to use at least scissors, but
I don't. Yeah, elementary school arts and crafts was very challenging for me.
Well, then let's not risk any injury to to clean up the beard. But our very own Ross Hardy is back with us. For those of y'all who have not seen the first episode yet, if you haven't, go back and watch the first episode. But and for anyone who may not remember, but of course you should. Ross Hardy here is a talented writer. And has been a good friend of mine since college, but he's the author of the novel Cafe Noir, which we talked about his first appearance on. If you haven't gotten to get that book, go ahead and get that book. I'm going to put that link back in the description as well as the work we're going to be talking about today. Because Ross, in addition to that novel, is also the author of a single issue comic called Library of Alexandria. And so I'm really excited to have Ross on today because it's a very different genre than what we talked about last time. And I don't want to waste too much time before we really get into it. But Ross, what can you tell us a little bit about this work that our readers need to know before we let you read?
Sure. So Library of Alexandria was the intention was to create a pilot issue, basically a proof of concept for an all ages semi-educational, not super educational, but fun and kind of a wishbone sort of thing where it's fun enough that everybody can enjoy it, but actually teaches like one or two things. The opening, Brice, I think you're going to put some of this on the screen for a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and read the introduction text. So when you're first faced with the first page, the pitch that was going to go out to all the the publishers or whoever was interested was the lone survivor of a plane crash that claimed the life of her parents. Alexandria Eldritch was raised by a group of renegade literary theorists who taught her to channel the aspects of the 5 great heroes from all stories: the trickster, the explorer, the champion, the magician, and the sage. Now she has returned to society and enrolled in Creative Commons Middle School, where a tear in the fabric of reality means fictional villains are now frighteningly real. Joined by dimensional traveler Johnny Everywhere, librarian Jill Trent, and former superhero Nathan Hale, Alex must use her abilities to save the school, protect her friends, and get all her homework done on time. So that kind of that introduction, that pitch kind of gives you an idea of what we're getting into. It's it's literary jokes. It's kind of weird internet humor. It's goofy. It's fun. I really enjoyed writing it.
Well, I love the book, and I know my viewers will as well if they will enjoy the little bit you're about to share, and of course they'll enjoy the whole thing if they'll go ahead and get it, which again should.
Yes.
So, well, let's go ahead and get into it then. And so, Ross, without further ado, here is Ross Hardy with Library of Alexandria.
Monday. Our hero is in grave peril, for she finds herself trapped in a fearsome dungeon. Mrs. Evans' English class. Your reading over the weekend were the first 835 lines of Beowulf. Now, this poem is one of the oldest surviving works of Old English that we have today. Can anyone tell me what Old English is? Johnny! It's like Shakespeare, right? All the doths and forsooths. Not quite. Shakespeare lived hundreds of years after Beowulf was written. Old English is more like this. Havat, Vigordana ingradandum, peracinum pirum griffum, Kiananda, apleas elen fremandon. Are you okay? Are you having a stroke? That's what Beowulf would have sounded like when it was first written. Fortunately, it's been translated, so we can understand it. Now, who can tell me how the reading starts? Alex? Well, there's a monster named Grendel, right? That's right. Grendel is said to be descended from Cain, who, in the book of Genesis, commits the first murder. Go on. Well, Grendel's rampaging through this community. Correct. Hrothgar's Hall. Why? He hates to hear people having fun? Close enough. Mrs. Evans, please send Alexandria Eldritch to the library. Another errand for Miss Trent, so be it. But come right back. The library. Blessed refuge. Silent sanctuary. Domain of one Jill Trent, former science sleuth, the CCMS media specialist. This better be good, Mrs. Trent. Mrs. Evans didn't seem too happy. We can worry about her later. We've got a problem. The rift flared a few minutes ago. Grendel was able to manifest himself. Huh. What? Oh, nothing. We were talking about Grendel in class, like 2 minutes ago. It seems a little convenient to me. Well, convenient or not, Grendel's dangerous. You need to subdue him before he hurts someone. Oh, well, we should be fine. In the story, Grendel only starts monstering around because he hates the sound of music. Attention, students. The music department will be holding an impromptu concert in the auditorium in 5 minutes. All classes are asked to attend. Thank you. Nuts. All right. Big scary monster. No problem. Let's see who wants off the leash today. Alex taps into humanity's collective unconscious where all stories live and makes contact with one of the 5 great archetypes. But who will she be? The mighty champion? The brilliant sage? Or, like Odysseus or Tom Sawyer, an explorer thrives on adventure and new experience, using wits instead of fists to overcome obstacles? Explorer. Great. Maybe I can travel at him.
Well, I can definitely see what you're talking about with the internet humor and jokes. Definitely up my alley, which is one reason why we're friends. So, Ross, as you know, I said, this is a genre we really have not gotten a chance to really talk about here on the show yet. So, first, what I want to ask is, what, as someone who's you've written an entire novel, so what is it that led this particular story, or you in general, to wanting to come to the comic book genre here for this particular story?
Well, I've always loved comic books. I kind of fell off. I've fallen off a little bit in the past couple of years. Haven't read any of the new stuff lately, but I've always really liked comic books, and especially I've really liked the ability for comic books to communicate difficult or not challenging, but I don't know, advanced, maybe communicate adult topics to anyone, and not adult like R-rated stuff, but like adult as in these adult themes, like, okay, dealing with aging, dealing with death, dealing with, what am I going to do now that I'm a parent? What am I going to do now that I've moved out of my parents' house, right? These are things that comics, I think, uniquely have the ability to tackle, because I think somebody like Grant Morrison, some comic, like somebody who's really steep in the lore of comics, be able to articulate this better. But there's something about the mixture of the colorful artwork, and it's not always colorful. You get these black and white comics, but like mainstream comics are very colorful and inherently juvenile, like, especially in the way that they've been marketed for the past 75 years in the United States. At least, like, setting aside Japanese comics are much different, but in America, comics are viewed as a juvenile medium. So they have this unique ability to be subversive in that you can take something that is a juvenile medium and communicate something that is more advanced. Mm-hmm. It's something that works together with the medium in the way that the written word doesn't. The written word is just the written word. The only collaborator is between the writer and the reader, mm-hmm. And because you've got the reader develop basically, they're the ones painting the pictures. So with a comic, all of that collaboration has been done. So you're really able to totally immerse yourself into this world, and it's much more accessible because it's all right there, right? Mm-hmm. It's like just you open a comic book and that door is just open. You can fall right into it. So the specifically what I wanted to do was write something that people, I would say that anybody could enjoy, but really it's the only person I care about entertaining in anything I write is me. It's, I want to make the jokes that I laugh at, and I want to like kind of poke fun at the things I think are funny. But I also wanted to do something that if a precocious middle school child opened this up, then they would learn one legitimate thing about English literature, and they would. What I wrote about Beowulf is not wrong. Like, Grendel does attack Hrothgar's hall because he hates the sound of merriment, and he is the first descendant of Cain. So the goal of the, or not when I initially started the project, it was, okay, I want to make something that's got this character in a intimately familiar setting, which is the middle school, and it's the school is the setting for, you know, Harry Potter and Buffy, you know, because it's archetypical. You know, everybody's got that experience, but also it's something where it's, I'm going to sound like I'm 1,000 years old when I say this, but it's, you can learn something while you're having fun. And I just, like, I felt myself crumbling into dust as I articulated that.
It may be an old phrase, but it's true, and it's something we all need to remind ourselves of sometimes.
Well, thank you.
You know, but and for my viewers who, you know, have heard Ross here expound on comics and their virtue, Ross and I have, of course, over dinner tables, have had plenty of conversations about these kind of things. I once heard Ross give a talk at a convention
Yes.
on deeper meanings of Superman and Batman. I believe you were comparing them to Hobbes and Kant
Right.
philosophically. So this is actually something Ross has put a lot of work and thought into, and not just this one issue. Now, before I definitely want to get to talk about the wedding of the writing and the visual medium. But before we get to that, when you first started the project, were there what was the kind of the biggest challenge you had to deal with as you were creating this, or most unexpected challenge you ran into, something you didn't expect that was going to be a problem and you had to deal with?
Yeah. There are two, and the second one kind of goes into the idea of the art. So I'll save that for the second one, and then we'll transition hopefully seamlessly into that. But the thing that is, there are a ton of different ways to write comic books, and the way I wrote it was a pretty conventional script, right? It's at the top of the page, it said page 1, and under page 1 it said panel 1, and under panel 1 it was a description of the first panel. And that's the kind of thing that was surprisingly difficult to write down. Alex is standing here, Johnny is standing here, Miss Evans is standing here. It's the kind of thing that I didn't think was going to be difficult, because when you're writing a book, that's all a book is just different descriptions of who's standing where. But when I don't know if I'm going to be able to phrase this properly, but when you're writing a comic, the first panel, there's a sterility and it's clinical, because you have to be able to say, with no embellishment or no, there's no spark. It's just, it's all very matter of fact. It's, Alex is standing here, she's looking in this direction. And that goes against a lot of my instincts, because, you know, you want to dress it up. You want to, you know, if you're a writer, you want to make things exciting. So just being as matter of fact in the way of, okay, well, how exactly do I want to put this? It requires, like, I'm a very poetic person by nature. Not, I don't write poetry, but you know, I'm in the way of, like, I like to, you know, use metaphors. You compare things to things. So I fall back on that a lot. I fall back on metaphor, and I fall back on, well, she looks like this. And you can't do that when you're basically writing instructions for someone else to draw. You cannot, you can't be pretty. You have to just say, draw this for me. So the second difficulty is in getting an idea, or getting a sense of how much space is on a page.
Mhm.
Because if you're writing, it doesn't matter. You're writing, you pound out the words, and the words go on the pages, and everything's cool. With a comic or something in a visual medium, there's 8.5 by 11 inches, minus whatever margin is, minus whatever bleed is. You can only fit so much on there. If you try to put a written like a novel's worth of 1 page of dialogue on a comic book, it's not going to work, because you can only, you could put 50 words in a word bubble or a thought bubble before it starts to get crowded, and then visually it's confusing. So that's a talent that I didn't have then, I still don't have, of the sense of being able to anticipate where things are going to look. Because you can write out, okay, I want all of this to happen, but there's still only so much space for all of that to be shown, and you've got to figure out a balance between the words that are said and because the more dialogue is on the page, the less you can see of the page, because those word balloons take up space. So you have to balance the word balloons with everything else, and that was something that it took me a while to get a handle of. So to talk about the transition into the collaboration with the artist, that's something that she was able to help me with.
So you really had to develop a trusting relationship.
Yeah. You had to build a rapport. The artist's name is Audrey Carruthers. I feel really bad because I have lost touch with her. I came across her the hardest thing, because it's way easier to write than it is to draw. So there are a lot more artists. There are a lot more writers that are looking for artists to illustrate the work than there are artists. So artists kind of pick and choose. So I came across her on a Reddit thread. She shared some of her art. And I wish I had kept up with her, but that's entirely on me. She did a great job, and she was the one who kind of guided me through it, where she shared that I would share the script with her, and she would come back and say, okay, if you do this, it's not going to work in the next panel, so we have to move this word bubble to the next panel. And most of the time it's just like that. It's just shifting things around. There's like there was never a moment where this can't work, that this is beyond the capacity of the medium. We just have to try something else. It was all about, okay, you wanted her to be standing up in this shot and saying this thing, but if she says this thing, we won't be able to see her standing up, so we have to kind of move the puzzle pieces.
All right. Well,
you got new earbuds. Sorry, they I got to get the tips in there, right?
Well, so our viewers can get maybe a bit of understanding of this. I talked about doing this.
Yeah.
Let's look at that first page.
Okay.
And compare what your notes, and you can read what your notes were for the page versus how the page actually comes out.
So I'm looking at my script here. It's page 1 says the Library of Alexandria, issue 1. There came a great beast, or then there came Grendel. Which, Grendel was the name of this grim demon, which is a line from Beowulf. It starts with the pitch that I read earlier about being stranded with some renegade literary theorists, and then it says page 1, panel 1. The first note is cap, which means caption. So anytime you see those black boxes with the yellow text, caption. It reads, Monday, and our hero is in grave peril. It then, I do think I missed sorry about that. Panel 1 reads, we'll open with Alex in the middle of English class. Her teacher, Mrs. Evans, is in the front of the class holding an open book. Alex is near the front of the class. Johnny is next to her. So you can see how what I was saying about this is not scintillating. That's not exciting, right? If you read a book where the first page was Alex was in class, her teacher is in front of the class, Alex is in the front of the class. Like no, you can't do that. But that's kind of direction that's important to give to an artist, because artists, unlike writers, are talented people, I think, and they are able to communicate they're able to take the written word and make it into interesting things. So panel 2 reads, Johnny looks a little bit nervous. He's not the student Alex is. He may or may not have done his homework. Mrs. Evans looks a little smug. She loves getting to show off how smart she is. So you see what Audrey was able to do there, because that's one panel, but obviously it's very difficult to show a smug person and a nervous person in the same frame, right? So she split it down the middle. And I gave her as much autonomy, as much leash as I possibly could, because she knew what she was doing way more than I did. So we get to panel 3, and it reads, Johnny definitely looks panicked now, eyes wide. Mrs. Evans is smiling wider. And then finally, panel 4 says, this is our first relook at Alex, who gets this pretty big panel by herself. Mrs. Evans, and Google Sheets is not cooperating. Mrs. Evans is off panel, so we see her word balloon coming in. So you'll notice that what's written in my script as panel 4 is the last panel, became panel 1 of page 2. And that's kind of, it's basically Audrey, gets the script and says, if you want this to be a big panel, it's not going to work with the rest of it. So we need to kind of shift that. And most of the time it's fine. I mean, it's just a matter of, moving these word bubbles around.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And also just noticing how, your, how Audrey, you gave the description of the teacher in the front room with an open book, but she chooses to have her open the book later on in the panel, which kind of both shows off the fact that she's being really, how smart she is. She's able to reference, compared to the student anyway, she's able to reference the book very quickly, where the student's jaw is, Johnny's jaw is wide open.
Yeah.
And so she communicated exactly what you wanted. She just,
yes,
did, as comic book artists are so ably capable of, doing it through visuals.
Yeah.
So,
and there are the way I wrote the script is not the one way. I mean, it's very famously, I forget what it's the Marvel method, because back in the day, Stan Lee was writing, 20 comics. So he would just write, a paragraph like, all right, here's what's going to happen. Fantastic Four got to fight the mole monster. And then he would just give it to Jack Kirby, and Jack Kirby would do everything else. And so you have to have a certain, but for Stan Lee to be able to do that, Jack Kirby had to know what Stan Lee wanted, right? So there's got to be a certain amount of familiarity that you have with one another. And that's obviously, I didn't have that. I didn't, never met Audrey before. So we were able to kind of develop that rapport, but going into it, you kind of just have to lay everything out. It's like, this is what I'm seeing. Let's see how you can communicate that, translate that.
How many, clearly she's not gonna waste her time with inking a page until you're happy with it. As you went through that back and forth, how many different drafts of a page would you say you'd go through before you got to where she would really finish the page? Oh,
yeah. No,
you never had a moment where you had to go, look, I really appreciate what you did, but we really gotta.
No, first, because I was extraordinarily fortunate to find somebody that talented. But second, this is going to sound very cynical and mercenary, but that costs more. I'm serious. I mean, this I paid her for the work, and it's the details were hashed out. It's like, all right, because so I'm going to give you for this rate, I'll draw these characters. And what she did was she drew the main character. She drew Alex, she drew Johnny, and she drew Miss Evans, and said, you get 3 free revisions. And so she drew those. And then once she had the characters, I'd say, all right, this is my rate per page. And if she had to redo a page, that's another page. So it sounds really bad, but it wasn't a financial decision, because it never came to that, because I was very happy with everything she was able to do. But it would have been like that's the main impediment, because she's freelance, she's a professional. So somebody like me, I'm writing this on my own time, and if I send it to her and she illustrates it, and then we send it to Dark Horse or Image and they love it and they give us $1 million, then that's fine, and we can become partners and sell that. But she doesn't know me, and she doesn't know if this is going to go anywhere. So she's a professional, she wants to get paid up front.
Yeah, well, that certainly makes sense, because that as the Joker said.
And again, I'm sorry.
as the Joker said, if you're good at something, never do it for free.
Yes, and she was like I never like I was overwhelmed by like how it turned out. And like her design for Grendel, I didn't give her any design, and I don't believe that you showed Grendel in either of those
I did, but
previews. So,
I believe.
I was just gonna let that be a surprise for any of the readers who want to go to my Comixology page. But no, she's tremendously talented.
She absolutely is. She did a fantastic job with this. Your story is absolutely fantastic.
Well, thank you.
So, I think we're coming up on our time here. So I do want to wrap things up a little bit. But Ross, for my folks at home, y'all, if y'all haven't figured out yet, is an incredibly talented storyteller, and he always scoffs when I say this, but it's absolutely true. So if you enjoyed Cafe Noir, especially the wit and humor of that, you're going to find it with in abundance with a visual plus here in Library of Alexandria. So I'm going to have a link to Library of Alexandria, and also if you haven't read Cafe Noir yet, the link's going to be for that in the description as well. Ross, I don't know what you'll have for us next time you come on the show, because I'm going to bring you back on the show.
I got to get cracking there because I'm digging. I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel of my old stuff, so I got to have something new for you.
Hey, if that's what it takes, that's what I'm here for, motivation.
That's all right. Well, I'll see what I can do.
We'll start doing some flash fiction that's under 1,000 words to bring on here. It's a fun challenge to do. I keep trying to get my guests, trying to talk some guests into actually doing the full story in 1,000 words.
But I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's fun, but I'm sure skydiving's fun too. I don't want to do that either.
Yeah. Well, whatever project you work on next, no matter what it is, you're always welcome here on the show to show it off.
Thank you.
So everybody, again, don't forget to buy Ross's novel and comic. So Cafe Noir and Library of Alexandria. Links are in the description. Again, don't forget to tune in here on the channel every Sunday, because we got new content coming at you every week. Again, thanks to my great friend Ross Hardy, friend of the show. We get to use that phrase. So everyone, y'all have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great one.